Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to start by acknowledging SoonerCon. Get ready for the next chapter in Oklahoma's longest-running fan-run pop culture convention. SoonerCon will be returning in 2024, June 21st through 23rd. Get ready for a weekend of cosplay, fun and excitement, vendors, gaming, and more. You can go to SoonerCon.com for more information. On tap today, I have Rachel Alexandra, better known to her followers as ILoveKimPossibleALot. How you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing okay. I'm just relaxing from kind of being a boss, a girl boss is a little bit hard sometimes. There's a lot of steps, but it's the end of the day is always nice because I can just chill and read my read books or whatever the case be, catch up on commissions or whatever.
So what are you girl bossing right now?
So I have no idea. Like, I know, for people who are not familiar, we talked a little bit at this con that we just did, Fan Expo Chicago. So I know this is generally a Star Trek podcast, but that is all of my knowledge base. So, hi Trekkies, I guess. I don't know what they're called. Anyway, I run my own production team. It's nonprofit, so that can be tricky just from a motivation / getting to the core of why people want to volunteer kind of thing. So, it's helpful for me because it weeds out a lot of the toxic mindsets as far as, why people want to volunteer, and I'm a girl on the internet, so that's even a whole other, can of worms. But so that, and then I'm right now, because we're a little bit behind with content, I've been mostly working on my my fan server on Discord. So we now have activities every night, and then we have multiple activities on the weekend, including movies, so all for free. So just as a way for people that are interested in the content in one way or the other can meet other people and maybe go to cons online and kind of hopefully make some friends that aren't just, consuming the content essentially. So that's kind of my main goal with that. And that's been generally it. I have I got contracted for my first comic book / illustration job, so that's fun.
Cool.
And then, which I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that any more than that, but that's my first professional work as an artist, so that's exciting. That's not just commissions. And then I have I have one commission I'm working on, and that's my life right now up to this moment of this recording. So
Well, I mean, as far as this audience of this show goes, just in the last several episodes, we had a writer from Spider-Man, a look at the writer's strike from the perspective of some of the people involved in one of those shows, won't name the exact show, and a person who had published a book on dad jokes. So you're very much in good company here.
Okay, yeah, I'm also happy to talk about the writer's strike as someone who's definitely not in the industry. Thank God, because I never thought I'd say thank God, because that's my main goal, is to break into the industry and be a showrunner, but it's not really a good time for that right now. So I'm just kind of vibing and waiting for whatever happens to happen, because I got no stakes in that game right now. So
Mm-hmm. Well, you and I might be kind of in the same boat there in that we're not technically in any of the guilds. However, some of the things we're doing rely on people who are in that guild being a bit more free than they are right now. So we're
Correct.
sitting and waiting.
Correct. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I mean, there are things I could be doing right now that I am not, and I really don't want to say more than that. So, but that's unfortunate, but I think it's for a good... I mean, we need to have these discussions had.
Oh, yeah.
They should have been had a long time ago.
I definitely am for the strikes, just to put it out there. Especially with AI as an artist, and I wear a lot of hats, but for the people playing at home, I'm a YouTuber. I guess I'm my own personality on the YouTube channel. I kind of am labeled as a comedian. Like my videos are art / character analysis or movie analysis. And then we make our own animations, and then I draw and animate on the side for commissions for my own stuff. So I do a lot. So yeah, from an artist perspective, I understand, especially with the rise of AI, from a artist / voice actor perspective, the art should belong to the humans at the end of the day. And I just don't think, without getting too much into it, the high up executives really understand that. The industry in general has always been very I don't even know how to approach this to a general person, but the general gist is like you take what you get, and that isn't really healthy at the end of the day. And I'm glad we're having these conversations sooner rather than later, also at the end of the day. So
I'm glad you brought that up because I'm looking through your YouTube channel right here on my screen here, and I love what you do. I really do. I mean, here's the thing that strikes me is that I'm looking at this, and you have a mishmash of like My Little Pony and Disney and your commentary, and somebody who doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground could easily look at this and say, well, this is the kind of thing AI could do beautifully. You don't need a human for this. And you're exactly the reason you do need a human for this. Your channel. Yeah. Your channel is a great statement to how creative you can get when you just start playing with stuff.
Yeah, as well as just general collaboration. Like, I wouldn't be able to reach the feats on the channel without, the collaboration of wonderful other people that are talented in me in other different ways. At the end of the day, I'm a writer and a voice artist for the channel, and then director and stuff like that. I'll occasionally do some storyboards or something if I want to visually explain what's going on. Like I let people have creative control, but at the end of the day, it's usually my call one way or the other. But having an animation background and just watching a lot of cartoons before I got started getting more comfortable with digital art has been very helpful with the move to YouTube. And the move to YouTube was never really something I thought of when I was younger. I always wanted to write this show or do this show that I have in my head for since forever. But it's a fun segue, and it's good that I'm in like-minded company as far as people that either grew up with My Little Pony. I've been doing this for 10 years, so at this point, people come up to me and they're like, oh yeah, I watched you when I was a child. And I'm like, how old are you now? And they say, I'm like 17. And I'm just like, you're still a child. So, I was just freshman year of college, I started, and I just kind of never stopped, even though there's been high and low points, essentially. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you can see that this came from a strong, strong love of animation and cartoons.
Yeah, I try. It's mostly, we focus more on, Disney and general cartoons right now. For those who are unfamiliar with the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic and the Brony scene, the show ended in 2019. They're on the next generation, which I don't really keep up with anymore. So I will occasionally talk about My Little Pony on my podcast or make a Stray Pony video every once in a while. But for the most part, we are making content based on other things. So I try not to isolate people that it came for that. But at the end of the day, the fandom, if that's what you want to call it, the fandom kind of has dwindled down a little bit, which is fine. And I'm happy to go to PonyCons and all that stuff. Happy to still, I'm not embarrassed about it. But, that's just not where my focus is right now. So,
and see, that's an example of something I've mentioned a couple of times for people who are into some of the bigger sci-fi franchises, for example, where they're having new content constantly come out, and people will say, well, that's just not my thing, and I get angry about it. And I say, there's no harm in saying, this latest installment isn't something I need to follow right now. Mm-hmm. That doesn't need to be me. I can move on to something else. I can do something else. I can explore something else, and that's what you're doing.
Right, and then, again, for those who aren't familiar with my history, my motivation for making content started with the character of Discord from My Little Pony, and he's not really in the new generation. He's in the comic books for an arc in there, but that's really it, and so there's not really, and so I was interested in him, and then all the lore kind of came with that, and so there was still a Brony fandom that was starting when I started making content, but it didn't reach its peak around 2015, and I started in 2013. So that's I was able to ride the peak, which was fun. So
nice. It's always nice when you can make the trends work for you instead of against you.
Yeah, I didn't, plan that, but it worked out nicely as far as my growth as a content creator. So.
And you feel very comfortable stepping into the role of commentator and looking at just giving your 2 cents on several projects out there, like your Disney princesses, for example. And I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've studied media. I feel comfortable as a writer. I've been writing for myself and my content for a very long time. There's, narrative stories that I've written for the content, which, I always write, my own material for the most part. The only thing that is not me is sometimes jokes that are edited in post by other editors that I approve. but it's my voice. I'm just a little bit exaggerated in the videos. Essentially, it's, the pony is very me. I have a Kim Possible cutie mark for the pony, which so it's pretty much a alternate universe version of me, essentially, just a little bit exaggerated. So
I had the chance to talk to Adam West at a con many years ago when Family Guy was like really hitting its peak in my mind. We could argue as to where the peak was, but
same thing with The Simpsons, right?
Right, exactly. Everybody's got their own point, but this was my personal peak, and I wanted to ask him what it was like to basically play himself on camera, because that's what he does. But he's not really himself, and this is kind of what you're getting at: is you're playing you, but a very highly focused and very exaggerated version of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never unfortunately been able to meet Adam West, but I imagine the same kind of thing, especially Adam West was so, embedded into popular culture at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. So I'm sure he it seemed to me as an outsider looking in that he just had fun and was vibing, and, that's, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask. As long as he's comfortable with it and has a good, he's comfortable with the writing team in case there's something that he doesn't feel comfortable with, and, God bless, as long as everyone's happy with it.
Yeah, and that's what it kind of came down to, is that he was self-aware enough to be able to see when maybe his normal self was just a little odd, and he could make it a lot odd.
Mm-hmm. And he did something similar with the Fairly Odd Parents. He was Catman in there, which was a parody of Batman. And then, for a lot of the Cartoon Network, Hanna-Barbera kind of things, I know he was himself in Johnny Bravo. He was in an episode of Kim Possible, which was a spoof on the Batman Beyond premise. So, I think he's kind of been known for playing himself or parodies of his Batman persona for a while at that point as well. So
sure. And I mean, he's done other stuff. You can reach out to other projects he's done. It's not, especially when, Batman wasn't necessarily a big property at the time, when he got a chance to kind of stretch his wings a little bit. And it was good to see that too.
Yeah, his bat wings.
Pun definitely intended. But yeah, I can definitely appreciate the creative struggles you're going through there, and being able to make your own internet persona. How do you feel? I mean, you've got a successful YouTube career at this point. I think we can definitely say you're somebody who has put in your time and done well for yourself. Is that fair?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying. I've had the humbleness beaten out of me by bad things that have happened throughout my YouTube campaign or career, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy, and at the end of the day, I'm my own boss. Mm-hmm. So even though we don't make a profit, I can still use it to reach out to others and go to conventions and have opportunities professionally, and, that stuff is like an extra nice thing to do and have, and from my understanding, a lot of the other people in that scene are not really as active anymore, just in the online space in general. So it's nice to be the one of the ones who is still kind of chugging along, even if it's not specifically My Little Pony content. So
sure. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this, and I'm saying you've got a channel with a huge following. You consistently put out stuff. You've been doing stuff for a while. You fans seem to love it. I mean, that to me is what I'm calling success. I'm not so worried about seeing your books. That's between you and someone else. But I mean, the fact that you got this and you built it with your own two hands is really cool.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. Again, all credit to the wonderful staff I've had over the years who have helped me. Who've dealt with me in my hyper-focused creative vision at times.
So you're saying you mentioned doing a Discord server and have a lot of events and a good community on there. What made you choose Discord?
As a general platform, it's very user friendly, and it's something that's well known in the general communities I'm in. But at the end of the day, it's easily accessible. It's doesn't eat up as much bandwidth as Skype, because I was on Skype for a little bit, or not for a little bit, for half of the career because Discord wasn't around. Mm-hmm. And, it's good for, as far as the team stuff, international stuff, because if it's on Skype, then you have to worry about, again, the bandwidth. And so there's technical reasons at the end of the day, but it's also very user-friendly, accessible for people who maybe are disabled or in some kind of situation like that. And, again, so yeah, all those points. User-friendly, nice AI, nice may start over. User friendly, and then technically, low on data and of that nature.
I ask because with this current situation with Twitter right now.
People, yeah, that's a hot mess.
Yeah. People are looking for options, and I just want to bring up any options that are out there.
Oh, right. Yeah, I guess Discord's more about, like, connecting with others than, like, having a following. Like, I probably won't leave Twitter unless I have to, because I'm going to call it Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Like,
nobody.
Yeah, no one is. So, I have backup places in case Twitter goes down, and that's where I'm most active as far as just general, social media sites that aren't just my YouTube. And, I have a Tumblr. I don't really have an Instagram that got hacked. So, yeah, I have, like, DeviantArt, which is a place people can post fan art, but I don't really use it that often. So, Discord's good, but it's mostly for connecting with others. It's not just for announcements and things like that, unless you already have a community and a following that is pre-established, would be my general recommendation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, for sure. And you had mentioned in a very recent video that you were thinking it was toxic, so I was kind of curious to see what...
as far as that, people can, based on their read, the bad thing about just reading text is tone can be mismatched, especially for people on the spectrum. And sometimes people will jump with whatever interpretation of the text that there is. I mean, that's always been a problem throughout the history of, fiction or even nonfiction. But Twitter specifically, if I post something, people, if they think I'm a bad person, they'll have the worst read about, like, oh, she's just doing that for selfish reasons, and they will take that interpretation and run with it and say, how dare you? So that's kind of where that toxicity can come from. But at the end of the day, that's up to each individual to, take a minute and be like, okay, so this is what I am interpreting they are saying, but at the end of the day, is this also what they are saying? So, and not just jump on their first conclusion. So it can be, I wouldn't recommend anyone, 13 or under be on Twitter because of that reason. So it can be messy sometimes, for sure.
For sure. And that was originally why people started pushing for the use of what they called emoticons back in the early days of the internet, the web, in the mid-90s. And that became emojis later on. We kind of made it a little more graphical. But the kind of set was, if you need to specify whether you are angry or happy or sad, these are ways you can physically show this on a screen. And that it wasn't just always about being cute. It was like sometimes it's a way of making sure that your tone is set.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That was a little bit before my time, but I believe you.
Yeah, and you were just saying that something was like, you feel old, and yeah, you're making me feel old now. It's okay, though.
As long as you're comfortable with it.
I'm very, very.
Okay, cool.
There's a reason our mascot is a literal fossil.
Very fair. But, it's Twitter, but Twitter can be fun, but, just approach with caution would be my general advice for people who are still on there for whatever reason, so.
Yeah, really any place on the internet you want to go with your eyes wide open.
Right, especially, and that happens with content, too. Like, sometimes I will purposely poke fun at myself a lot throughout the content, and people won't really read that. They'll think, like, I've had people assume that others have written my scripts for me without any evidence or anything, based just on their interpretation of the content, as a way to, dismiss me or my opinions, or, dismiss, like, my critical thinking skills or whatever. And it's just, that stuff is, can be toxic too. Like, every YouTuber knows that there might be a bad comment or you suck, but at the end of the day, that's more about the individual than it is the content creator for the most part. So
I had there have been a couple of episodes we did on people who have done scam consoles in the gaming community, basically, trying to raise Kickstarter money for something that never ends up getting produced. And without getting too much into the weeds on that, I've seen a lot of people who would take that and say, well, the people trying to expose them are bad because, they don't like the scammers. Like, well, you're not supposed to like scammers. You don't. Right. That's not actually an opinion you have to have.
Yeah. And Kickstarter is, like, like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, those things are always a little bit sketchy because at the end of the day, I keep on saying at the end of the day, but anyway, if someone's never run a project before, a successful project, then just doing a Kickstarter is a way to basically pay for it without the experience to justify you making the project. So it's a great resource, but you have to have the experience in order to make sure that your backers feel secure. Because also, if they don't feel secure or you don't have a way to keep on updating them, then your project might not be done, or someone can just run with the money, and that's a huge risk to your credibility. And I would never do a Kickstarter unless everything was pretty much set at that point before I even launched it. So.
And that was something you and I talked a lot about at Fan Expo Chicago, is the fact that so many people really get into the idea of making something like a YouTube channel or a fan film or an animated short of some kind, and they grossly underestimate whether the time, the money, the talent, whatever mix they're going to have, how much they have at their disposal, and things go bad, and even that's okay. I mean, you can fail at something. I encourage you to fail at something. Just try and fail, but when there's somebody else's money involved, it's a different situation.
Correct. So I always tell people, if they've never had an experience, just to try to start small and to start, editing with a free program, and just kind of start, practicing something more than writing or voice acting. Because, not that I'm dismissing those things, but if you can produce your own content, even very simple content like a comic dub, and you have a portfolio of comic dubs, then that's something, and something is better than nothing, as far as video content. So.
And that goes back to the internet literacy we were talking about before. Just like you can't necessarily trust all the information out there, you don't always know the context of somebody's communication. You can't trust it just because something looks professional that it is professional.
Correct. Because anyone has access to the internet, and I'm glad the internet has challenged the industry as much as it has, and kind of worked coincide with the industry, because I think it's like making fan content is a great creative outlet. It's a healthy creative outlet, but you can't expect to make money, and you also will hope that the people that own the IP are receptive of your fan content. I think I know in general CBS isn't really keen on Star Trek fan productions. I don't know if that's changed in the last 5 years or so, but compared to Hasbro and My Little Pony stuff, Hasbro's always been, unless it's very black and white, it looks like it's official when it's not, then Hasbro just kind of leaves the My Little Pony fan content alone. So, which I think is in their best interest for sure.
The fan production stuff from Trek is an evolving situation. There was a time that the gates were wide open and they really didn't care, and that was abused by certain people who will not be named. and so there are rules that need to be followed now, and within those rules you can still pretty much do whatever you want, but the rules are very much there, and you do not want to step outside them.
Oh yeah, for sure, because Star Trek is a huge moneymaker for CBS, so I don't blame them, but it can be tricky because at the end of the day, My Little Pony is content that is not for adults, and then, and the adults are the ones who have the money, so, kids making My Little Pony fan content doesn't really hurt anyone, but, I can imagine big Trek productions kind of getting messy sometimes.
There's probably something to the fact that a lot of the fan content made for My Little Pony or any Hasbro product there's a good chance it's going to be made by kids. Mm-hmm. And you don't necessarily want to come down on kids doing free advertising for your products.
Correct. And even the adults like I was who made fan content, and now analyzing the show, that's, again, still free advertisement at the end of the day, so.
But for every one of you, there's probably 30 kids under 10 doing something similar are going to,
especially outside the internet, maybe they're doing something at school where they're putting on a My Little Pony themed play or something cute, that stuff doesn't hurt anyone. It's just a way for people to express their passion for the IP, which I think is great and healthy, and it's a good way to get your creativity going in your own a zone that you still feel comfortable in, because making your own IP is much different than playing around with someone else's. So,
and it's nice to have the structure already there, the characters, the world building. Sometimes even the physical props can be available if it's an established IP. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of things at your disposal. You can jumpstart it, and then you just have to have the good story, which is the hard part.
Yeah, and especially too, you can find if you do fan projects in general, I find you can find community people that are also passionate about the same thing, and they are willing to help out a little bit more or easily compared to an original IP because they're already invested in the thing that you're making fan content for. Versus, you have to do a pitch, and they might not be into it, and it's kind of it's got a greater risk of something happening or whatever. So yeah, as far as pitching, it's a lot easier as long as it's nonprofit. Like, be careful if you start monetizing your fan projects, guys. It can be very messy.
But there is that unicorn situation where you can have a fan project that gets legitimized by them actually buying it. That does it's a non-zero situation.
Oh yeah, and that is the best possible case, I think, for everyone involved. But I say the good thing about the industry in general is it vets itself because people have to pay to get into the guilds, and you only really get that opportunity if you've done a presentable job being professional in another outlet. So which I think is great because when you don't have that, you get people that come out of the woodworks doing fan projects that you're not really familiar with their background, and there could be some toxic at best and or toxic at worst, very, very toxic people at worst that like they're I've been in tons of situations where people are exposed for past behavior. Thank God it's happening in Hollywood now, but especially in the fan community, and it's just like, oh wow, no one knew that this person did something to someone else, and it's good that we know that, but at the end of the day, like, it's not the same as the industry where hopefully that stuff is a little bit more, vetted than just people who have access to an internet connection, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And, you mentioned that whole almost predatory situation. I'm glad that those people are getting pulled up to the surface for sure. I was thinking, especially with, it seems like comic illustrators and comic artists, there's a very not direct path, but a much smaller path for them to say, I'm really good at drawing this superhero, and I'm going to get really, really good at this. And occasionally one of the big comics can reach down to them and say, would you like a side gig making trading card for us? Or, hey, we have a one shot. Would you like to do a cover? I have seen people in my group of friends who get that invite, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice way. I mean, because people are so passionate about that IP that they're doing that in their free time anyway. So it's nice that industries or whatever companies will reach out and give that person the opportunity. But at the end of the day, that's a risk, and sometimes that's a scary risk if people, maybe don't have a good rapport working in a collaborative effort or environment in general. So I've seen the high pros and the high cons, both sides.
Any words of caution you could offer on that front?
Well, for us, I guess on the team, we just kind of vet people. We just kind of look at, corporations do this too, but we try to look at their YouTube, we try to look at their, but wherever they're coming from, their Facebook, their Twitter, and just kind of see what they're saying and notice if there's anything that, I really want a girlfriend. That's a huge red flag. Why would you be advertising that to, like in a way that's just like, why won't girls like me? So like in a way that's almost kind of venting, and that's not really appropriate to be putting on your social media. Essentially, that's like for between you and a therapist that I hope you have. So there's nothing wrong with wanting a partner, to reiterate, but just just demanding it because you don't have one and putting that on social media is not really appropriate, especially if you want professional work from that social media or that kind of that avatar. And the bad thing about the internet is if you get called out, then you can just make a new account and a different name and hope that no one catches on. But usually the people who do that are not very smart, and people usually catch on based on past behavior or birthday that gets left in there that you forget about, or people forget about. So it's again, it's not like the industry where you have people have their full names and they just get blacklisted. You have to kind of do a little extra legwork sometimes to notice those things, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of the way of the game.
Sure, and people forget social media is social first. It is.
Yeah.
And there's not really a way to secure that. It's by definition something that the whole planet will get access to. So really don't put something there if you don't want it there.
Yeah, yeah. You know, especially if you're looking for professional work and you're not just there on your own just for funsies, you know.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like I said, anything could be looked over by somebody who's considering working with you.
Yeah, and I've had voice actors on my own podcast called Animation Communication, if people want to look it up. Communication spelled with a K. Get it, Kim Possible. Anyway, so I've had voice actors on that before, and they say they give experiences about a voice actor going into a booth and having a negative experience and then going on Twitter saying, oh man, this director, or this thing was really annoying. Like, casting directors will see that, you know, and they'll be like, no, you know, you're done. You're not, you know, so, like, people aren't as dumb as, you know, as you think sometimes, so just be careful. Just, you know, the industry is for good people, because with great power comes great responsibility, and if you don't think you can wield that power responsibly, then you probably shouldn't be in the industry, period.
There's a lot of trust built into this, and I'm not even, at this point, I don't even have to make the distinction between comics, movies, TV, video games. I mean, really, they all kind of have the same basic premise of you work with people you've come to trust. People who know when to keep their mouth shut, people who know how to act in public, people who will show up on time and do what they say they're going to do. The stuff that will get you far is the stuff that is very, very basic.
Yeah, and it's a collaboration at the end of the day. And if you want to be in the industry, then you need practice collaborating and having your social skills. And it's okay if the social skills aren't there, but that doesn't mean you don't get to not practice them if you want to be in a industry of other creative people that you have to work with and have a rapport with. Because, like, you know, it's like people think I'm dumb all the time because I'm just a dumb girl and they read some bad take on me and they're just like, oh, she'll never know about this. And I'm just like, I saw you coming a mile away, yo. Like, I'm not dumb.
Yeah, no, actually, you're incredibly smart and you've got a great stage presence. I know this because I got to mess around with you a little bit at the Fan Expo there, asking some questions. And there was one particular point when I deliberately asked a silly question about My Little Pony, and you looked at me and said, "You must be new," which was just very, very silly, and I liked it.
Yeah, and you know, because like at this point, there's a lot of people that come to these events where I do like. You know, at Fan Expo, I did a panel about fan projects, and I did a panel about YouTube, and I did, like, a panel about art, or I think I was drawing while I was also answering questions. I was multitasking, because, hey, yo, that's what I do. So, there's a lot of people that don't even know me from my pony work, my Little Pony background. So, I have to kind of explain what a brony is, and who Discord is as a character, and that's fine, you know, but it's just kind of entertaining because that was the majority of my stage presence, my online persona, like, that was what my brand was based around for, like, the majority of the time of me making YouTube. So it's just kind of funny that I'm still around when other people are coming that are new that don't even know or haven't looked at the backlog even yet. So it's a fun contradiction.
So I want to make sure that we get a chance to talk about where you can be found and where people can look at your next few adventures there. So where can people follow your adventures on the web?
So I don't have I haven't had time to make a website and all that stuff yet. That will be down the line. So the basic thing is my YouTube is ILoveKimPossibleALot, at YouTube, whatever. You just put in ILoveKimPossibleALot on the pink banner. It's kind of hard to miss. You know, there's plenty of backlog there if you're new, and even if you're not into My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, then, you know, I've been told that people still enjoy those videos, even if they're not from that demographic based on, you know, the comedy that is present in them. So if you're interested or you're open, give those a chance. If not, there's plenty of videos about Kim Possible the show or Disney properties. We just did a video about, like 2 videos about Ariel, because Jodie Benson was at Fan Expo and I got to mod her panel. I was very happy about that. And then Discord, my Discord server is I'm probably most active in there, as well as Twitter, if you still use Twitter, I guess, or whatever. But at the end of the day, my on my YouTube channel, there's my link tree, and that has all my stuff. And then if you like podcasts, I have, like I mentioned earlier, I have Animation Communication with a K. And that's on YouTube as its own separate thing, as well as on whatever your podcast preference. So Spotify and iTunes and, whatever there is. So.
Okay. Everything you just mentioned is going to be on my website, aaronbossig.com.
Oh, I
in the show
appreciate
notes.
it.
Yep. We're going to give people a direct path right to you. Do you have any plans for cons in the very near future?
I have not been booked for any cons lately, but it's kind of been on the back burner with all of the project delays. So we're working on a new convention press packet kit, as well as other assets. So not anything right now, but that stuff will probably be announced on my social media when it gets announced. So hopefully I'll get a booking in the next month or two, depending on who, how it is, who ends up biting.
If you get something, give me a shout. Maybe we'll get the same table together.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
All right. Thanks so much for being here. I would be glad to have you back anytime.
Okay, yeah, thanks for having me. I had a fun time.